Well, good morning. This is Jill Paperno, the current bar president, and I have the honor and pleasure of interviewing Beth Wilkens today, past Monroe County Bar Association president. So Beth, I understand that you are retired now, is that right?
Yes, I've been retired a full year and loving every minute.
That's great. Have you done any particular things in retirement that you didn't have the opportunity to do when you were practicing?
I have indeed. One of the things that I most enjoy is every Monday afternoon, I work with the VLSP virtual helpline. I encourage anybody to sign up for that, even as corporate types who it scares to death because we don't understand litigation, get through it. So it's a great service to the community. So it's fun to have more time to spend that. And I am on a couple of volunteer boards and working on creating a community garden that serves a dining center. And so, and most of all, I'm helping my two granddaughters who have virtual school for elementary school, and I'm learning new math, trying to help them a couple of days a week, which is the most daunting task of all.
So, but for the new math, to me, this sounds like a perfect retirement.
It's a really scary retirement is what it is.
So when you were practicing law, what kind of law did you practice?
I was a partner at Harris Beach. I did corporate law and finance most of my career. So I was a transactional lawyer. I was in court exactly 4 times in my career, other than bankruptcy court, which I did a little bit early on in my career, and 3 of those were on a volunteer basis. So I unfortunately was pretty specialized.
And switching gears for a second, how did you first become involved with the Monroe County Bar Association?
You know, I was trying to think back because it's been almost 50 years, but I certainly got involved with the business law section, and I was trying to remember what were the first committee or 2 that I was on, but I joined a committee and went to some events, and then was asked to be secretary and elected to the trustees, which was a wonderful thing, and then ultimately became president. But it was mostly just getting involved in committee work.
And what year did you become president of the bar?
1985. Doesn't seem possible it was that long ago.
Did the board have a particular focus that year when you were president?
You know, we were fortunate enough to have a lot of issues on our desk, or unfortunate as the case may be. One of the things that was the most challenging was the Monroe County Bar, along with the other upstate bars, helped get through the New York State Bar the first non-discrimination resolutions. And it wasn't that I think that people were really concerned about wanting to discriminate, but there was a real concern about should the bar be taking a position on social matters as opposed to being just a kind of a professional trade organization. And it was a really interesting and difficult debate, but ultimately we came to the conclusion that non-discrimination against sex, race, all of the protected categories was really part of justice, and that really was within our wheelhouse. And then we're able to be very supportive of that first we passed it as a resolution of the Monroe County Bar, and then we're very supportive at the State House of Delegates, and it finally went through there as well. Additionally, I guess we had all of the usual things that most bar presidents dealt with the judicial poll, it was called at that point. And was it fair, and was it balanced, and was it rigged? And so that was a continuing challenge. We were still fortunate in those days that the political parties would still cross-endorse highly qualified judicial candidates, so they didn't oftentimes have to run in the same way. And so the judicial poll was even, it was always extremely important, but it was even more important in some ways. So that was a continuing big deal.
So it sounds like you really broke some ground on the social issues with the Bar Association, and the Bar Association has continued to debate and address those kinds of decisions over the years. And I know that the Bar has at times struggled with it and at times has really come out ahead of unimportant issues. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, actually, what you should do is thank the leadership of the Bar before me, because they took a chance. I mean, there is no way, if I wasn't a woman, that I was going to be president of the Monroe County Bar at age 34 in those years. And the leadership of the Bar took a chance. I was flabbergasted when they told me I'd been nominated to be president, because I think the next youngest president, I don't know, was probably 55, 60, people who were long into their careers. And I was really very concerned not to do such a bad job that they never did it again. But they had huge foresight, and they were so supportive. And I had great support from both the past presidents and from the Board of Trustees and from the Bar as a whole. It was a very welcoming time, and it was very heartwarming, and I was so proud of our Bar as part of that.
That's wonderful. It must have been daunting to become a Bar president at that age. I sometimes feel a real weight of responsibility, and I'm far older than 34 years old.
It was pretty daunting, but what we underestimate, I think, is also I was concerned about, making sure I tried to do the best job for the Bar itself, but the Bar has an incredible role and voice in the community, and even more so in those days, I think, so that the Bar president got invited to speak at lots of events, and I think probably still does. That you can talk to that better than I can. And so being the face of that profession is both a privilege, but a really daunting thing, because you really want to try to help people understand the system, inspire faith in it, and be willing to work to try to make it better.
Mm-hmm. So while you were Bar president, were there any particular events or issues that took you by surprise?
Being elected. I think the breadth of influence of the Bar was one of the things that absolutely took me by surprise. I think not so much surprise, but I got a much greater appreciation of the incredible diversity within our Bar of practice, of personalities, of issues. I think that I was very lucky, because I had a large firm behind me. I had people to support me. I had good training. But so many people come out of law school and they're thrust into situations where, law school doesn't teach us how to do practical things. And it's a really scary thing to be put in that situation. At the same time, you're responsible for other people's lives. And trying to understand what other people were going through was one of the more difficult things. And I know that, unlike me, particularly in the area of litigation, that women were struggling much more. To me, it was an advantage to be a woman. For most, it was not. Mm-hmm. And so how to try to bridge that gap and help others figure out what it was that made things work for me, but everybody has to define themselves in their own way. And many were struggling with issues that were less of a problem for me, maybe because I blew them off a little bit, but just were, it wasn't the same degree of difficulty. And that was always a concern.
So when you wrapped up your term as immediate past president, at the end of the 3-year commitment you make, did you remain involved? Sometimes people step back, sometimes people take on other roles.
I did remain involved, although certainly not to the same degree. About that time, was getting heavily involved in the whole healthcare arena, and had some pretty time-consuming volunteer roles in that area, board roles, but I did stay on committees and served on committees, and then as that ramped down, I was able to get a little more involved again, which was a really nice thing.
And while you were president, what was it like to be a woman bar president?
Well, for me, I would say the vast majority of people went out of their way to be supportive. I always felt badly that sometimes people felt like they had to be careful what they said, or don't swear, or there's a lady in the room, sort of thing. And so part of it was trying to help people understand, just be a person. If you're a decent person, it's all going to work out, and you aren't going to upset me. And in fact, it's paternalistic to say, "Oh, excuse me," if you swore. And so just trying to work through those kinds of just day-to-day interactions, and trying to just say to people, be comfortable. We're all in this together. If somebody's being obnoxious, that's their problem. That's not my problem. And just work on through. And so, as I say, I think probably more issues for me were my age rather than my sex. Just because I was less known. I was in a specialized area. I didn't go to court, so half the bar, they knew my husband and my father-in-law. They had no idea who I was. And so it was, it was more of a, let's figure out who each other are as part of this.
Mm-hmm. So through the course of your career, you probably saw a lot of changes in how women practiced and how women were treated as attorneys. Do you have any specific memories of incidents that you experienced as an attorney or bar president that reflect the different ways that women were treated years ago or even more recently?
Well, there are a number of people who adopt as a negotiating style, a kind of a bullying thing, or I'll make my way by putting the other side down, or by bulldozing, my way through things. I think it may get amplified a little bit, particularly when you're younger as a woman. Although the interesting thing that I found was, I remember one transaction where a client of mine was selling a business, and this was probably before I became bar president. And the attorney on the other side just, honey-deared me to death, and, sweetheart, and patted me on the head and did whatever, and was so busy doing that, they didn't pay a lot of attention to the details of the deal. And I just, didn't help my client to get in a fight. So we just worked through, we got the deal done. And 6 months later, his client, the guy who bought the business, called me up and he said, "I was so impressed by your professionalism. I want you to represent me." And that company was my client for the next 40 years. So, things happen, and I guess I just tried to think of, how can you work through it and make the best of it. And if, it's very, I think it was much harder for people in the courtroom, because there you have less ability to be the master of your own destiny. Mm-hmm. But for a transactional lawyer, it worked.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any advice for younger women attorneys today?
You should always worry about taking advice from somebody who's so far away from it now that it's very
the advice.
It's very hard to have reality. But I think one thing is, try to separate out when you think that somebody is doing something to you because you're a woman. Is it because you're a woman, or because you're new and green and you don't know what you're doing? That's or they perceive that you don't know what you're doing. I mean, that's a hard thing to do. And the second thing I would say is just, no matter what, be professional, work your way through. And yeah, there will be times that doesn't always work, but overall, you'll come out way ahead in the end. And it doesn't, to me, being bitter or it's just not me to be in somebody's face. And I'm not sure that it really accomplishes a lot, because all you do is get angry yourself. You get, and you aren't going to change that other person probably anyway. The way that you may change them is if they figure out they can't get to you.
Thank you. Do you have any other thoughts or anything else you'd like to address before we wrap up today?
Just my incredible gratitude to the bar. I mean, we have truly one of the best bars in the country. You learn that when you go to the ABA events. One of the most forward-thinking, one of the most involved. And our bar has had a very big tent. And I am just so very proud to have been part of it. And I'm just so very grateful, because the bar really was a huge part of my life and gave me a big jump start. And I'm really grateful for that. And I'm really grateful for what you're doing.
Thank you.
You have had a year of challenges like none of us have ever had, and you've done it with just flying colors. So we're really grateful to you.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. It's been a different kind of year. When you said before that, usually there are a lot of speaking engagements. We really didn't have that this year, but we had another focus, and it's a way of maybe us taking a pause and thinking about our past and our future. And the bar has been tremendously supportive, and I've been so fortunate to meet wonderful people like you in the course of my bar president years. So thank you so much to Beth Wilkens for doing this interview with us today. And it was very nice to see you.
It was great to talk with you, and keep doing the great work.
Thank you. Take care.